Welcome to Warframe, where we have certain frames who are basically the to-go frame for certain game modes, like Fast with Defense, Chromia or Necros for Survival, and Nova for Interception or Domination, because let's be real, it's basically domination from COD. But what about spy missions? Sure, most people will jump straight to Wukong, or some might say Elvira for her augment, or even to Titania, if they even exist. But for some, it would be the old trickster himself, the one frame that was able to move the cryopod back in closed beta, being able to crowd control a horde of enemies and quietly slip by without ever being seen. Or for some, he would be considered the king of spy mission, and that name belongs to the only trickster within the game, Loki. Loki was released in 2012 during the closed beta Warframe. At the time, Loki was considered the king of spy missions, and was the most busted starter frame to choose from at the time. Oh yeah, fun fact, Loki used to be one of the 3 starters until Mac was replaced in 2014. But Loki can make a decoy of himself to draw all fires away from himself and allies within the squad, being able to go invisible and switch places with most enemies within the game, but also being able to crowd control with Radial Disarm. And the years goes by, and it seems like nothing could stop Loki from being the trickster frame and the king of spy missions. Well, then came Elvira in 2015, which sure, there's some tech moves that players could pull off or being able to do massive damage, but that hasn't stopped Loki from still being the king of spy mission. Okay, so that might make Elvira a lot better choice for spy missions, but it's just an augment, meaning it requires a mod slot to use the augment. So in the end, Loki is still the undefeated. Oh, you motherfucker! Now, Wukong did come a month earlier than Elvira, but in saying that, the rework that Wukong was given not only made him the AFK Warframe in the game thanks to his clone, it also made Wukong currently, and to this day, the unbeatable, the champion, and the king of spy missions. But hey, Loki can still at least crowd control, and I'm sure there's not a feature that will kill crowd control entirely. Where does DE hate Loki? So, if you couldn't tell, Warframe hasn't been too kind to all frames like Loki. This isn't to say Loki isn't great at spy missions or isn't able to crowd control, but it's a case of why choose Loki when you can use Wukong to speedrun the spy missions? Or why even try to crowd control if most enemies have Overguard active and that the game is now just a glorified damage slot fest? Now, there might be some people who will point out that you can just use one of the many Helmuth abilities, but the problem is that most people will only use like the same 10 subsume ability out of the 60 plus subsume within the game and more to come in the future. But this isn't to say that Loki needs a rework, he just requires some touch-ups, like giving some quality of life changes or a buff to his overall kit. Just something to help the old trickster get back in the game without being shafted away back in the attic. Loki Plane was released in the Dark Sector update, or Update 14, not to be confused with the 2008 Dark Sector or the 1999 update with Rebecca Starr.
It's me, definitely Rebecca Ford.
Or Update 13.7, and came along with the Melee Bow Prime and the Sentinel Worm Prime. Oh, and there's Loki's passive, which just makes it where the player can wall watch for 60 seconds, which makes Loki the only Warframe to have the longest wall watch duration in the entire game. And with that out of the way, now we can actually start with Loki's first ability, and that being So starting with Loki's first utility ability, that being Decoy. As the name implies, Loki deploys a decoy of himself, in which it will force all nearby enemies to focus towards the decoy. While it has the highest aggro or threat level within the game, it has line of sight check for some reason, but it does increase the total health and shield per enemies by 50%, which does scale as the level increases and doesn't have a cap of how many enemies that are affected by the decoy, but the effect range is only 15 meters at base range, so having more range will help decoy gain more health in total. Players can only cast one decoy at any given time, but it refreshes the enemy's aggro towards the decoy, with the base duration being 25 seconds and the casting range being 100 meters. Damage decoy is how do I put it? An interesting augment, to say the least, but the player is able to place the decoy on top of any enemies that doesn't have an active overguard though, and while under the effect, any enemies that shoot the decoy enemy will be given 5 random status effects and damaged back with 350% of reflected damage. While it doesn't seem that insane of an augment, but if you were to use Nyx's Mind Control, more specifically Mind Freak, not only will it make the selected target more tanky, but it will spread the random side effects more efficiently thanks to the extra speed buff given from Mind Freak. Deceptive Bond is that one augment where if you really hate yourself, then you would use this mod. It basically makes it where if the player takes damage, then 50% of that total damage is given to the decoy instead, but the same is applied to the decoy. So if the decoy takes damage, then that 50% is given straight to the player itself, which you're not going to have a good time with it. But then the Saviour Decoy. The augment gives Loki more survivability, which in short, when the player takes fatal damage, then Loki will switch place with the decoy, but the decoy will be destroyed within the process. But the added bonus is when active, it increases the casting speed for decoy by 50%, so you can quickly cast those straight away. Now this is where I would talk about the second ability of said Warframe, like explaining how the ability works, its status like the range and duration etc, if it's good or not, you name it. But because this is a Loki video, and if you are unable to understand what the ability does just from the name alone, or never have used Loki before, Invisibility just makes the player go invisible, with a base duration of 12 seconds. Though it does make the in-game audio somewhat muffled and muted at times, but you could use Arcane Crepuscular, which gives the player a flat critical final damage and 30% strength while invisible. Hushed Invisibility is an augment that removes all noises from all weapons. It's basically Banshee's current passive, but before the rework that she's getting sometime later in 2026, also at the time of recording this. Sick. Oh, and for some reason, being invisible from other ways, like from Octavia's metronome, doesn't trigger the augment. Also sick. Now we come to Loki's survival ability, Switch Teleport. Casting the ability while looking at an enemy or any squad mates will cause both Loki and the selected target to switch places at the exact spots, with a base range of 75 meters. After swapping places with an enemy, the target will become confused after being teleported, and will give Loki a 50% speed buff for 5 seconds at base duration. Now in hindsight, this ability seems like a nothing burger ability, but it's actually useful for some missions and countering certain enemies type, like using Decoy to bypass laser grids in spy missions, or being able to swap with enemies with active overguard like X-Men units, for some reason. Not to mention that Switch Teleport doesn't have the standard line of sight check, but more of an initial line of sight check. Basically, the player can choose the target to switch with without having to keep their eyes on the target at all times. Safeguard Switch is one of Loki's best augment that he currently has. Though it's not required, it's more for if the player wants more survivability added. Okay, that's kind of a lie, because you technically need this augment if you want Loki to survive indefinitely, but I digress. But the augment makes it where, when swapping with any enemies, Loki will gain 3 seconds of visibility, but swapping with squad mates will give the iframe instead, which lasts for 6 seconds, meaning Loki can only gain iframe when swapping with enemies. Though you can just swap with a decoy and that still gets you the iframe buff, but it also removes all negative status effects for both Loki and squad mates when teleported. Now for Loki's crowd control ability, Radial Disarm. When cast, Loki releases an AoE pulse, in which causes all enemies within 20 meters at base range. The effect will cause all enemies to lower their weapons and can only perform melee attacks, unless it's the Uncharted robots, in which they can still use their range attacks. Because why not, I guess. And for some reason, it does 400 impact damage at base strength, for some reason, and not radiation? Oh, and speaking of radiation, Irradiating Disarm just makes Radial Disarm now apply radiation to all enemies within range with a base duration of 9 seconds. Sure, why not? Sure, just make it where it's an augment, not a part of his ability. Alright, now for the build. So starting with the shards as always, I've got 2 max energy shards and a armor shard. Now with these 3, it's just optional, like you can, you know, if you're crazy enough, you can do more armor for survivability. Or you can put equilibrium shards if you want. It's preference all that. But I think 2 recommended would be having parkour velocity and castle speed. Castle speed is, you know, always guaranteed to have it. I think parkour velocity just works best. Again, if you're gonna use Loki for like stealth mission, and plus it's just easier when going invisible, like 95% of the time. So, or like even guaranteed all the time. So that's why I have parkour velocity. It just makes it easier. So starting with the first build, which is the Red Spy. So this is a defensive build that I've got currently, though it was my main to-go build to use, but turns out it's not the ideal way to use it. So in this defense build, we're using Banish instead of Switch Guard, which does kneecap his survivability, but I'm using Saviour Decoy in that case, which just means if Loki takes fatal damage, then it'll switch place with the decoy, but decoy gets destroyed in the process. But the cast speed to replace any decoy is pretty much instant. So you basically have like an infinite like safeguard point, basically, but without the, you know, the 3-second iframe. But anyways, so with Banish, you play this with Decoy, and Decoy doesn't take any damage because it will be invulnerable to all damage, as long as the duration is high enough. But then also that we will still have Radial Disarm. Now the Radial Disarm is used for, like, you know, again on defense mission. That way you remove most enemies. I say most because you got like Runier, Corpus, and who am I thinking? Scoldra that have range weapons, and they use their melees instead. Whereas like Infected or the Murmurs technically don't. Or again, like the Enchanted robots, they can't like melee. I don't think they have melee attack specifically, but they still use their guns. So, but the point is that having a decoy out with, well, Banish will hopefully focus all the enemies towards the decoy instead of the what's the word, the defense target in theory. So, but again, it has line of sight, so it's kind of like you have to be, the enemies has to be on view with the decoy, otherwise for some reason it doesn't work, which is kind of dumb. Like, I don't think that decoy needs a line of sight. Like with with switch teleport, yeah, it makes sense because you have to look at the enemy initially and then it's like whatever. But yeah, it's kind of dumb. But for the build, I'm using Saviour Decoy, as I mentioned, and Irradiating Disarm. Now the thing to mention is this: you actually do not need Irradiating Disarm. I only did this because I thought using Universal Fallout would work, and it kind of does, but but this is done to help, I guess, for like your companion to apply more status with it, I guess, in theory. But also we got Archon Stretch as well, because again, companions doing electricity damage will trigger this mod, and that's always a good thing. But you also want high duration. Now when it comes to range, I think I put too much range, but that's because of Radial Disarm, because I want to affect as much enemies as possible when doing defense mission. So there's that. You can also got 2 arcanes here. So we got the concentration and then this one, which when it comes to these 2 arcanes, you technically don't need this. You can just use like more survival mods, or you can use arcane energize if you really want. But other than that, yeah, it's not much to choose from for this build. It's just basically just go invisible, you do the damage, you can, you're obviously killing the enemies off. So yeah, the other thing down with this is that you gain energy, strength, which you kind of don't need strength, but the final crit does help. Actually, no, in that case, you could just use like a arcane that gives you increased damage. So there's that, I guess. And this is the second build I'm showing, which is my blue spy build, or the melee focus. As you can tell, we're using Wrathful Events. Now with this one, obviously you want high duration and high strength and like little to all range and efficiency. Well, efficiency is optional, but obviously the reason we do it is because, again, Wrathful Events is so strict with its duration that obviously it shows the exact amount. So in this case, 280 means it would be 28 seconds, 0.2 milliseconds of duration, or just, again, flat 28 seconds. With the strength also being the exact amount, which we're getting, my bad, the amount from we're getting from Intensify and others like that, which is over 300% critical damage. A few things to note is we also got Switch Guard, which is good. We use, again, Intensify, Blind Rage, all the other good stuff. Again, with Decoy, there's not much to do with Decoy with this, because again, it's a melee build. So you could use Switch Guard with this. That way you can place the Decoy and then Switch Guard around that. That is, I mean, you don't have to, but it's more like just like if there's a bit of a panic and like need something to distract the enemies. It still works because, again, the health for the Decoy scales, which I'm not sure if I mentioned, which I hope I have, does scale for like all content. So there's that. So it does take a bit, but just being able to use it for like the Switch Guard block helps a lot. Also, in terms of arcanes, we use an Arcane Fury, which gives us 100% melee damage that goes towards Wrathful Events, and then the same thing as before, which is the gain final critical damage. Now, the thing is this: if you don't want to use this, though, I can. Oh wait, this one makes sense here. But if you don't want to use it, you can use something like what's that arcane I'm trying to think of? Arcane Reaper. This just gives extra armor and health. Now, technically, it doesn't work for Loki, but I think just for his survivability to give like more armor and health, that way he doesn't get fucked over by expert units more specifically, so that would work too. Now for the third build, which is the green spy build, and as you can tell, this is the spy build, because we're using this ability, or Sassoon ability. It's not really Sassoon, it's more a helmet ability, but regardless of the case, this is the spy build. And also, as you can see, it's a bit wonky. Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. So the reason we have a little bit of strength from Intensify is because of a switch teleport. Because Switch Teleport gives you a speed buff after teleporting, which is why your main method of moving around a lot, and also why we got Parkour Velocity, because that also adds that to your speed. Just moving around, get to the next point objective during flight missions, just to get done. And also now with that, you can also use Decoy to switch places during laser squids, which I know you can use on Virus Augment. I'll just use a Wukong, but again, it's just more of a challenge for me at this point, because it's like you can keep doing the same thing on easy mode, but it's like it gets boring, and it's like for me it's just too boring. Like I need some kind of challenge. Now again, if you're using it as the cheese strat, like using Wukong, 100% okay with that. Like don't I'm not shitting on people that do that, trust me, I've done that too. Especially I still use Wukong for spy missions. That's more because it's like, oh okay, if it's a spy mission, it's like, oh okay, I'll just quickly go bring Wukong because I don't want to deal with it. But the times when I do want to do like actual spy mission, I'll just bring Loki with me just for that extra challenge. But anyway, with my fucking rambling, so we got a bit of extra mods here. Like we have X Energy Nexus, as this will help with Loki have more energy, mainly because then we make sure that we have this mod ready on the go. And because again, you're gonna be using this ability a lot, despite only being like over 20 cost of energy. Having some kind of energy generation helps a lot, even though we've got Archon Stretch, but again, having a way to generate energy a little bit helps a lot. Which also we got Dreamer Bond. Also we got Armor and Agility. This is only used for the extra 15% speed. So you don't have to use this. I just only use it because of the extra speed. And in terms of arcanes, it really doesn't matter. I think maybe concentration would help a lot. That way, you use this ability and then you're able to increase invisibility duration a lot to I think like an extra 8 seconds, 8 to 6 seconds, something like that. Could be wrong. I was gonna say these. I mean, they're all optional, but you can also use Arcane Agility, which on damage, as in hitting an enemy will trigger this and it just makes it a lot more faster with the switch effect. speed buff. So yeah, this is the spy build I use for Loki, but you can change it a bit to your preference, or again, just fucking use Wukong. So now for the final build for Loki, which is the yellow spy build, and this is the main build I'm gonna start using more often, mainly for the fact that we're using mind control instead of Radial Disarm. Now the reason we're using this is because of damage decoy, and the thing I learned this on the wiki, is that when placing a decoy on top of an enemy, you can actually use mind control with it, which obviously increases the effect from this. Not only that, also makes it easier to spread. But with Mind Freak on their head, ignoring the damage, which, like, I mean, it does damage, but I don't think it works effectively more with Nyx does. But that's not the case. The case is that with this, the mind control enemy increased movement speed, meaning that this, with damage decoy added, meaning it will spread more status effect, a lot more, meaning we can use Arcane Impetus, which means this Arcane has no cap, I believe, to how much you can get from it, meaning you can be getting a shitload of strength for 20 seconds. So I'm not sure if the refreshes the duration count, or like if it constantly refreshes from adding new status effects, which I have to assume it probably doesn't. Maybe it's like the second it applies one applies one status effect, it starts counting it and then like refreshes every 20 seconds. That could be the case, but otherwise this is fantastic with this build that we're going with. But also that we're using Safeguard because, again, extra survivability, and plus no cap to how many times you can spam the fucking thing multiple times. But yeah, same thing, we're using Onboard Intensify, Archon Stretch, but this time we're using Archon Flow, mainly for the fact that I just want to make sure I have the energy to cast his abilities. But yeah, you don't need to have Blind Flow for this one. I think just for like just having base efficiency is fine. Also, you want duration. Oh yeah, that's the thing with this build. You also want high duration. That way these abilities can last longer. So the things I'm not using Arcane Concentration, which I feel like I should be technically using Arcane Concentration, but I think for this, it works fine. Actually, I might take out Blind Flow, but yeah, again, you can change it how you want, use it as you please. Again, it's not the most effective thing. This is more just a to spread status effect from damage decoy, and which also helps a lot with your companion to spread the more status effect as it is. And plus, I think it just makes it easier that way. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, yeah, that's the build. Yeah, so take what you if you like anything of them, just take it away. But just try and change it to like your own playstyle. Like how like maybe you're like, oh, I don't like playing flow on this. I'd rather have something else because like the way I've got the setup. It's all on preference, which I might think might change this up too. But yeah, it's all there. Just go nuts on it. So there are two ways that the players can get Loki. The first is from Neptune Saves, which is a assassination mission with the hyena packs. They're basically the Zanuka from LO3 boss fight, but no in a pack. But the second option is from the circuit, being that players can get Loki from rotation week 2.
What's that look?
But look, it's just like, what the fuck just happened?
No, I should give it a dirty look.
Oh, you mean that? Oh, you mean her? Oh, I have no clue. I don't know. She's getting freaky.
She's messed up, man.
What do you mean? I sure can go for a lot of them. Alright, what do we... This way.
Oh, he's stuck behind the car. Come on, man.
What? Come on. Man. Oh, there we go. I moved them. What? 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 Boy, are you good? Damn, oh, he's damn, I didn't know he was chill like that. God damn.
Thanks for watching.